Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. I'm a little late today. I was talking to the great souls here, the core devotees who love to hear most about from Srila Prabhupada's books. So I'm a little late. So I'm going to go right into the readings. Welcome all of you out in cyberspace. And of Jai, if you're watching, which I don't know if you are, but if you are, we miss you. Okay. Srimad-Bhagavatam Mahima Stotram, the glories of the Srimad-Bhagavatam by Sanatan Goswami. Goes like this. Sarvashastra Dipiyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabho Kalidwan Doditaditya Shri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Shri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshakshadayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Shri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madikambando Matsangin Madguro Man Mahadana Manistadaga Madbhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu saduta dayin atini chochatakada hanamunchagadachin mam premna rit kantayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Okay, does somebody remember where we are? Somebody else is talking now. Who is that? Havis. Havis is talking, and he's explaining the different qualities of devotees, the different divisions of devotees, and how to recognize different levels of Krishna consciousness. And the purports that we've been reading, the last one especially, the last couple, I think gave the most detailed, clear explanation of these Kanishta, Madhyam, and Uttamadhikari that I've ever read, that I can't remember reading something more clear and comprehensive in one place. So it's really nice. So okay, we've reached the 46th chapter in the 46th verse in the second chapter of the 11th canto, and Havis is answering the questions of Maharaja Nimi about devotees and how to recognize devotees. An intermediate, Hare Krishna Lena, welcome home. An intermediate or second class devotee called Madhyam Adhikari offers his love to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is a sincere friend to all the devotees of the Lord, shows mercy to the ignorant people who are innocent and disregards those who are envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We sure we didn't read that? I don't think we did. There were details like that in the other, but yeah. Purport. According to Bhagavad Gita, every living entity within the material world is eternally a minute, fragmental portion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Mamaivangsho jiva loke, jiva bhuta, sanatanaha. Bhagavad Gita 15:7. But because of the influence of Maya, the puffed up conditioned souls become inimical to the service of the Lord and the Lord's devotees, choose leaders among the materialistic sense gratifiers, and thus engage busily in a useless society of the cheaters and the cheated. A society of the blind leading the blind into a ditch or a nuclear war or whatever. Although the community of Vaishnavas is sincerely eager to serve the conditioned souls by bringing them back to their constitutional position, by Maya's influence, the materialistic living entity becomes hard-hearted and rejects the mercy of the Lord's devotees. According to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, although a second-class devotee is eager to preach to the innocent conditioned souls, he should avoid the atheistic class of men so that he will not become disturbed or polluted by their association. Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur has confirmed that a Vaishnava should be indifferent to those who are envious of the Supreme Lord. It is practically seen that when such persons are informed of the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they attempt to ridicule the Supreme Lord, thus further deteriorating their polluted existence. Remember when he had those heavy vegans? The ones that come militant, the one that was militant, he got angry. As soon as we started explaining things, he got angry. He wanted to, pull out a placard or something and start to go on strike. In this connection, Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur, so we should avoid people like that. If we can see that they're angry or that they're really contaminated by Mayavad philosophy or real impersonalists, don't waste too much energy on them. There's so many sincere people out there, right? Innocent people. We should put our energy where the innocence is, and then that will bring back the fruits and it won't drain us. It will give us energy. Anyway, this is what it says here. It is practically seen that when such persons are informed of the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they attempt to ridicule the Supreme Lord, thus further deteriorating their polluted existence. In this connection, Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur has quoted from the 10th canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam, 10:20-36. Giriyo mumuchus toyam kvachin na mumuchu shivam. Yata jnanamritam kale jnanino datate nava. Sometimes in autumn, the water falls down from the tops of the hills to supply clean water, and sometimes the water stops. Similarly, sometimes great saintly persons distribute clear knowledge, and sometimes they are silent. In this regard, Srila Jiva Goswami has mentioned that although the first-class devotee of the Lord may at times exhibit apparent hatred toward the demons because of entering the mood of the Lord's pastimes, the intermediate devotees should avoid such feelings. Furthermore, the intermediate devotee should not in any way associate with the powerful atheistic class of men, because there is danger that his mind will become bewildered by such association. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur, if a Vaishnava preacher encounters one who is envious of him, the preacher should remain far away from such an envious person. but the Vaishnava preacher may meditate upon ways to save the envious class of men. Such meditation is called sadachar, or saintly behavior. Srila Jiva Goswami has mentioned Prahlad Maharaj as an example of a saintly person. In Srimad-Bhagavatam 7.9.43, there is the following statement by Prahlad. Naivo dvije paradurat jayavai taranyas twad birya gaya namaham ritamagna chitaha shochetato vimukachetasi indriyartha maya sukaya badam ad bahato vimudan. O best of the great personalities, I am not at all afraid of material existence, for wherever I stay, I am fully absorbed in thought of your glories and activities. My concern is only for the fools and rascals who are making elaborate plans for material and happiness and maintaining their families, societies, and countries. I am simply concerned with love for them. Although a Vaishnava preacher constantly meditates on the welfare of all living entities, he will not associate with those who are unreceptive to the message of the Supreme Lord, Krishna. In this way, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur states that even Bharat Maharaj, Vyasadeva, and Shukadev Goswami do not exhibit their mercy indiscriminately. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has given an elaborate explanation to prove that the discrimination employed by a Madhyamadikari preacher does not at all show a lack of mercy. He states that upeksha, or neglect, as mentioned in this verse, is the proper medicine for those who are inimical to the Supreme Lord and His devotees. Indifference from the preacher checks feelings of hostility on both sides. Although there is a Vedic injunction that one should cut out the tongue of a person who offends the Supreme Lord and His devotees. In this age, it is best simply to avoid potential offenders and thus prevent them from committing further sinful activities against the Vaishnavas. It is the duty of a Vaishnava preacher to point out the futility of any process besides surrendering to the Supreme Lord. An envious person, however, will resent such strong preaching by a Vaishnava and disrespect him, considering the devotee to be unnecessarily criticizing others. I just got a letter from somebody like that I met in England. They had to move away from the devotees because they couldn't handle it, you know. The always pointing out the effects of material nature. He couldn't handle it, so he had to distance himself. Such a person who cannot appreciate the mercy of Vaishnavas should be neglected. Otherwise, according to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, his cheating mentality will increase day by day. Those who are not attracted to the Sankirtan movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and who disrespect the faithful servants of Lord Chaitanya, considering their strong statements about the Sankirtan movement to be obstacles to their own worship of the Lord, will never be able to fix their minds on Krishna, but will gradually fall down from the path of devotion by confusing the external activities of the material world with the actual worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Such bewilderment has been expressed by the words Vayam Dutiya Binibeshata Ksyat. So I can't help but tell you this story. I just read this morning in our readings, we got 46 pages done, 41 pages done, by the way. We had a shorter time because Rasik had to give a class. Anyway, so we read about this Brahmana from Bengal who came with a poem and he wanted to read it to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he was well known to Bhagavat Acharya. And so he wanted to hear this poem. So no, Lord Chaitanya, he wanted to read it to Lord Chaitanya, but Lord Chaitanya would never hear anything unless it was first read by Swarup Damodar and approved. So he kept asking, and Swarup Damodar was hesitant, but finally he agreed. So a bunch of devotees got together, and they read this. He read this poem to Swarup Damodar, the first verse, and all the devotees said, "Oh, this is very wonderful." And then Swarup Damodar just came down like a hammer, and he said, "You have offended the Supreme Personality of Godhead and everyone else, and you're going to hell." And all the devotees were like, "Whoa!" And then he explained it in such a wonderful way. You know, he made a difference between Lord Chaitanya and Jagannath, and said Jagannath was the, you know, he was brought to life by Lord Chaitanya. Anyway, he said many things, but that was the essence of it. He made a difference between the Lord and the Lord's and the soul of the Lord, and the difference between Lord Chaitanya and Lord Jagannath. So this was a clear cut case of somebody who really didn't know what he was talking about, but pretended like he did, you know, and getting severe chastisement by Swarup Damodar. He went on and on and on, you know, and everybody became. But then what happened? Then the person, because of the power of Swarup Damodar, he became terrified, and he prayed his obeisances, and he begs, "Forgive me." And then Swarup Damodar explained how, even though he was such an offender, Saraswati used his words to glorify the Lord. And he gave him a little concession, so he became encouraged. And then he told him, if you want to learn how to write Vaishnava literature, you have to first of all study the Bhagavatam under a person who knows the Bhagavatam. So then he went and surrendered, and it was all very nice at the end. But it was an interesting example of how a person who's offensive by presenting something that's actually impersonal in the name of personal, you know, philosophy, and how we should respond. We shouldn't just, yeah, it's okay, and then let the impersonalism seep into, you know, our atmosphere and our consciousness. We can't do that. That's a mistake. Okay. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has strongly rejected those foolish persons who, under the plea of mercy and equal vision, perceive that a faithless person is also a devotee of the Supreme Lord, and do thus try to thrust the Harinama, or holy name of God, upon such offensive people. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta has stated, when childish people think themselves Mahabhagavatas and act in defiance of the spirit Vaishnava, spiritual master, such behavior simply holds them back from receiving the mercy of the Vaishnava's Guru. Bewildered by false ego, these self-proclaimed devotees gradually become fit to be ignored by pure devotees on the intermediate platform, and are cheated of the mercy that comes from the devotee's satisfaction. Thus they become asadhu by constantly committing offenses against the devotees who preach the holy name of Krishna. Pure devotees, therefore, in all circumstances, display indifference to those who falsely imagine themselves to be Vishuddha Bhaktas, or pure devotees of the Lord. This indifference is an excellent manifestation of their mercy. In other words, those who criticize the Vaishnava preachers on the second-class platform for discriminating between those who are fit to receive the Lord's mercy and those who are simply envious, are misunderstanding the mission of the Lord. Krishna himself states in the Bhagavad Gita 4:8, Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chaduskritam dharma sangstapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge. To deliver the pious and to annihilate the miscreants, as well as to re-establish the principles of religion, I advent myself millennium after millennium. Even such a great Vaishnava as Shukadeva Goswami, one of the 12 Mahajans in this universe, expressed his contempt for the evil Kongsa.
Fine, thank you.
You look like two spiritual seekers. Here, please, come and have a seat.
Thank you.
Make yourselves comfortable. Find a chair, sit in it, whatever. What's your name?
I'm David.
David, and yours?
Dustin.
Dustin. Oh, I heard about you.
I've heard about you too.
Yeah, you were Dustin. You're Dustin. You're Dustin. You're Dustin. Are you related?
We are, yeah. I'm his father. Yeah.
I thought there was a resemblance, not just materially or physically.
Yes.
Nice. Congratulations,
Thank you.
both of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we're reading from a very, very deep book, and you're coming in kind of in the middle, but the explanations are very thorough and very touching and very profound. So if you have questions or reflections or whatever, just keep them in your hearts, and then after we finish the reading, we'll have a discussion.
Sure.
Okay?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for coming. It's our pleasure to see you and to be with you.
Thank
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. A first class or second class Vaishnava never actually becomes envious of another living entity. But out of intense love for the Supreme Lord, he becomes angry when the Lord is offended. Also, understanding the Lord's mission, he discriminates according to the position of a particular living entity. To consider such a Vaishnava preacher an ordinary envious person, or to consider him sectarian because of his proclamation of pure devotional service as the most exalted of all methods of spiritual advancement, reflects a materialistic vision called Vaishnave Jati Buddhi, or Gurushu Naramati. Such an offense drags the offender down to a hellish condition of life by the laws of nature. So now we see in the world today the role that sectarian religion is playing. You know, sectarian religion means they don't accept the different methods of worship, and they think that persons who are worshiping differently than them are demoniac or somebody to be hated in some cases, and it's breaking apart human society. Because what makes human beings humans is spiritual identification and spiritual, a sense of spiritual inquisitiveness and spiritual mission. The animals, they're also eating, they're also sleeping, they're also defending themselves, they're also mating. These are the propensities that all living beings have in the material world. But they don't have the propensity to actually search, to inquire, to be inquisitive, to improve themselves spiritually. That only the human being can do. So that's the actual, so when the human beings, in the name of religion, break apart into different groups and fight with one another because they think they're worshipping a different god, or the religions are, different, then that's a animal propensity. It's not a human propensity. And that's a very dangerous thing, and it's happening now in human society in a very profound way. The wonderful loving dealings between Vaishnavas on the topmost platform are demonstrated in the pastimes of Chaitanya Charitamrita. In other words, although a Vaishnava sees every living entity as part and parcel of Krishna, he must discriminate in his external behavior so as not to interfere with the original purpose of the Lord's creation, which is to reform the living entities so that he can gradually come back home, back to Godhead.
I believe we skipped a few paragraphs.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, good. Just
According to Srila Jiva Goswami should be.
I got so absorbed in being with you, I forgot where I was. I skipped. Okay. Thank you. This is our fact checker. according to Srila Jiva Goswami, although a Mahabhagavata sees every living entity as a pure spirit soul, such a Mahabhagavata still experiences special ecstasies and other symptoms upon meeting another Vaishnava. This is not contradictory to his vision as a topmost devotee. Rather, it is a symptom of his love for Krishna. A pure devotee sees every living entity as part and parcel of Krishna, and therefore expresses his love for Krishna through love for all the expansions and creations of Krishna. Still, such a Mahabhagavata feels special, ecstatic love upon seeing another living entity directly pleasing the senses of the Supreme Lord. Such feelings are manifest in the statement of Lord Shiva to the Prachetas. So we have one great Acharya, great teacher, spiritual teacher in our line, and he made the statement, and the subject matter of this purport that we're reading right now is the classifications of devotees, neophyte devotees, medium devotees, and very advanced devotees. And he made a statement that there are the terms for those divisions are kanishta, meaning beginners, neophytes, and madhyam means medium devotees, advanced, and medium advancement, and then uttama means advanced devotees, very elevated, saintly persons. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is one of our great teachers, and he said there are kanishta and madhyam and uttama adhikaris in every religious group in the world. And those who are like that, uttama, when they get together, they don't see those differences, and they have real spiritual communion. When I was in London, for many years I was in London, we have a preaching temple there, and I used to sit up in the library and have a question and answer session every day for like 6 years or 7 years. And people from all over the world, London is a very cosmopolitan place. It's probably the most cosmopolitan city in the world. And I met people from all different religions and all different walks of life, and I had very nice, discussions in which when we talked about God, we knew what we were talking, the same person. We were talking about the Supreme Being. And so we really, and the others, the sectarians would always argue, and there was always tension and this and that. But so this is important. There's teachings, there's spiritual teachings in all the major scriptures of the world, but because of a lack of a clarity, a lack of a concrete understanding of the of God and how God is one at the same time personal, therefore it's very difficult for some personalities to share, and they politicize it, and they want to make sure that their flock stays loyal to them, so they'll speak against the other flock, and therefore there's a bunch of flocks, of birds flying together, but never together with others, flocks. So that's going on in the name of religion right now and causing a great problem, among other problems. It's not the only problem, but it's one of the major problems, most important problems. So Lord Shiva says, Chinarti na pi tulaye, na swargam na punar bhavam, bhagavat sangi sangasya, martyanam kem utashishaha. This is a Sanskrit verse. The basis of of knowledge is contained in the Sanskrit language, very deep scriptures, from which all other knowledge, including spiritual knowledge and other scriptures, emanate. So we always chant these so that there's authority behind the words and authority behind the thoughts. So it's not that just somebody speculating and making things up. So this is Lord Shiva to the Prachetas. If one by chance associates with a devotee, even for a fraction of a moment, he no longer is subject to attraction by the results of karma or jnana. What interest, then, can he have in the benedictions of the demigods who are subject to the laws of birth and death? Bhagavatam 4:24-57. Similarly, Lord Shiva also stated, Ata Bhagavata Yuyam Priyaksta Bhagavanyata Nabad Bhagavatanam Cha Martyanam Kim Utashishaha. If one by chance associates with a devotee, even for a fraction of a moment, he no longer is subject to attraction by the results of karma or jnana. What interest then can he have in the benedictions of a demigod who are subject to the laws of birth and death? You don't like what I'm doing?
No,
Again?
I was just kind of I was confused, so I went back. I thought you went to the next one. So
Did I? Am I okay?
yeah, you're fine. You just read the same one.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I'm continuing from where I left off. Similarly, Lord Shiva also stated, Ata Bhagavata Yuyam Priyaksta Bhagavanyata Madbad Yad Mad Bhagavatanam Cha Prayan Anyos Tikarachit. You are all devotees of the Lord, and as such, I appreciate that you are as respectable as the Supreme Lord, Personality of God Himself. I know that in this way, the devotees also respect me, and that I am dear to them. Thus, no one can be as dear to the devotees as I am. Bhagavatam 4:24-30. Similarly, in the first canto of Bhagavatam 1:7-11, Srila Shukadev Goswami is mentioned as Nityam Vishnu Janapriya, especially dear to the pure devotees of the Lord. The wonderful loving dealings between Vaishnavas on the topmost platform are demonstrated in the pastimes of Chaitanya Charitamrita. In other words, although a Vaishnava sees every living entity as part and parcel of Krishna, he must discriminate in his external behavior, not to interfere with the original purpose of the Lord's creation, which is to reform the living entities so that they can gradually come back home, back to Godhead. A pure devotee does not foolishly pretend equal vision and approach envious persons. Rather, he respects the mission of the Lord, as stated in Bhagavad Gita, the Bhagavad Gitam Yaham. On the other hand, if it is the Lord's desire, a pure devotee can offer his respects to all living beings. For example, Srila Jiva Goswami mentions that Uddhava and other pure devotees of the Lord were always prepared to offer respectful obeisances even to such persons as Duryodhana. Madhyama Adhikaris, however, should not imitate such Uttama Adhikaric behavior. In this connection, the distinction between Madhyama Adhikari and Uttama Adhikari is stated by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur as follows. Atra sarvabhuteshu bhagavad darshana yogyata yasya kadachit apina drishta. A Madhyamadhikari cannot at any time perceive the presence of the Supreme Lord within all living beings, whereas an Uttama Adhikari, however he acts on the second-class platform to carry out the Lord's mission, is aware that every living entity is ultimately a forgetful Krishna-conscious living entity. Therefore, although a devotee may externally engage 4 different types of behavior, as mentioned in this verse, therefore, although a devotee may externally engage 4 different types of behavior, as mentioned in this verse, namely, worship of the Lord, friendship with the devotees, preaching to the innocent, and rejection of the demons, he is not necessarily on the second-class platform, since an Uttama Adhikari also may exhibit these symptoms to carry out the Lord's mission. In this regard, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur mentions that it is the duty of the Madhyamadikari to extend himself as the right hand of the Uttama Adhikari, vowing to work for the benefit of others and offering to help in distributing love of Krishna. Finally, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has given a nice explanation of the difference between archana and bhajana. Archana refers to the platform of sadhana bhakti, in which one serves the Lord to carry out the rules and regulations of the process. One who has achieved the shelter of the Lord's holy name and is totally engaged in the attempt to serve the Lord should be considered to be on the platform of bhajan, even though his external activities may sometimes be less strict than those of the neophyte engaged in archana. This apparent lack of strictness, however, refers to laxity, not in the basic principles of sane behavior and renunciation of sense gratification, but rather in the details of Vaishnava ceremonies. Text. This is the difference between ritualistic religion and actual devotional service. Text 47. A devotee who faithfully engages in the worship of the deity in the temple, but does not behave properly toward other devotees or people in general, is called a prakrita bhakta, a materialistic devotee, and is considered to be in the lowest position. Purport. Srila Madhvacharya comments that one in the lowest stage of devotional service faithfully worships the deity in the temple, but is not aware that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is actually all-pervading. This same mentality can be seen in the Western countries, where people commit all types of sinful activity in their homes and in the street, but then piously go to a church and pray to God for mercy. Actually, God is in our home, God is in the street, God is in our office, God is in the forest. God is everywhere. And therefore God should be worshipped everywhere by the process of devotional service at His lotus feet. As stated in verse 41 of this chapter, Kam Vayam Agnim Salilam Mahim Cha Jyotinshi Satmani Disho Drumadin Sirit Samudrangs Chaharer Shariram Yatkim Chabutam Pranamet Ananyaha. A devotee should not see anything as being separate from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Ether, fire, air, water, earth, the sun, and other luminaries, all living beings, the directions, trees and other plants, the rivers and oceans, whatever devotee experiences, he should consider to be an expansion of Krishna. Thus, seeing everything that exists within creation as the body of the Supreme Lord, Hari, the devotee should offer his sincere respects to the entire expansion of the Lord's body. This is the vision of the Mahabhagavat devotee of the Lord. Srila Madhvacharya states that a Madhyamadikari, a devotee in the intermediate stage, sees the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the cause of all causes, and therefore offers his love to the Lord. Such a devotee is a sincere friend of other devotees, is merciful to the ignorant, and avoids the atheists. Nonetheless, tad vashvatvam na janati sarvasya jagato pitu. His realization of the all-pervading feature of the Supreme Lord is imperfect. Although he does have a general sense that everyone is ultimately meant to be a devotee of the Supreme Lord, and he tries to use everything in the service of Krishna, aware that everything belongs to the Lord, he may be bewildered by association with atheistic men. So this is the difference between Uttama Adhikari, Madhyama Adhikari, and a Kanishta Adhikari. The Kanishta Adhikari, compared to the general populace of the world, is actually elevated. Not that we should look down on the Kanishta Adhikaris. They're actually, and they have faith in God and they're worshiping God. But their faith is not so strong. And their knowledge about God is very weak. Therefore, they're susceptible to the influence of the different opinions and different philosophies and different spiritual concepts that may conflict with what they believe or what they think. Therefore, they have to be careful. And also, therefore, it's hard for them to preach or to feel like preaching because they can't see the soul in the heart of the other living beings. They can't see the super soul, God, in the heart of the ever being. Therefore, their position is tenable, and therefore they usually stay worshiping the deity and they don't take risks to preach and to try to meet people who are in need of deeper understanding. They don't have the knowledge, the philosophical knowledge, the strength that comes from spiritual knowledge to be able to speak in such a way as to change the hearts of others. So they should be careful. It doesn't mean that they're inferior in a sense. They're superior to the general mass of people who don't approach God for anything. But the Madhyamadhikaris, their faith is strong. And they may not always have the knowledge of the scriptures to argue and to give the right, so they may also become susceptible, but they're not in such danger as the neophyte devotees. But the Uttamadhikaris, their faith is deep and their knowledge is deep. They've understood by practical application of the knowledge and they're realized, and therefore there's no question of their faith being swayed by some philosophical aberration. So they can associate with anybody without fear of falling. But in order for them to preach, they will come down from that platform of seeing God, everyone as a devotee, because when they see everyone as a devotee, what's there to preach? They think they're seeing everything is actually properly situated, God is in control of everything, and everyone's a devotee, and they're just doing what they're supposed to be doing by the laws of nature. So they have to come down to the Madhyam platform and discriminate who's innocent, who's not innocent, who's a devotee, like that. So these purports are giving us a deeper vision to understand who is who and what is what, so we can live in this world without becoming degraded. Srila Madhvacharya states, Acharyam eva sangstitam Vishnum gyatva tad anyatranaiva janati yak puman. A Kanishta Adhikari has no idea that the Supreme Lord has the power to exist outside a church or temple. Sometimes the impersonalists, they think they don't come to the temple. And when you ask them, why don't you come to the temple? They say, well, God is everywhere. Then we say, yeah, He's everywhere, so He's also in the temple, right? So you can come to the temple. No, we can't go to the temple. See, this is the atheists who are disguising themselves as theists. They won't come to the temple. They won't come to the church. They think God is everywhere, but they're just pretending. They're not really seeing God everywhere because they don't see God in the temple. Furthermore, being puffed up by his own ceremonial worship, Atmano Bhakti Darpata, a Kanishta Adhikari cannot imagine that anyone is more pious or religious than he. And he is not even aware that other devotees are more advanced. Thus he cannot understand the Madhyama or Uttama, standard of devotional service. And sometimes, because of his false pride, he criticizes the more advanced devotees of the Lord, neglects them, or simply has no understanding of their exalted position as preachers or completely self-realized souls. Another symptom of the Kanishta Adhikari is that he is infatuated by the material qualifications of so-called great materialistic persons. Having a bodily concept of life himself, he is attracted by material opulence and thus minimizes the position of the Supreme Lord Vishnu. Such a Kanishta Adhikari therefore is disturbed if a second-class devotee criticizes the non-devotees of the Lord. In the name of compassion or kindness, a Kanishta Adhikari approves of the non-devotional activities of such materialistic men. And this is going on all over the world in the name of religion. They just water it down, water it down, water it down, and pretty soon they have nothing. Just water, no more taste. Because the Kanishta Adhikari is ignorant of the higher realms of devotional service and the unlimited transcendental bliss of Krishna consciousness, he sees devotional service merely as the religious aspect of life, but thinks that life has many enjoyable and worthwhile non-devotional aspects. Therefore, he becomes angry when the second-class devotees who are experiencing that Krishna is everything criticize the non-devotees. Madhvacharya says that such a person, because of his rudimentary faith in Krishna, is considered a devotee, but he is Bhaktadama, a devotee on the lowest standard. If such materialistic devotees follow the rules and regulations of deity worship, they will gradually be elevated to a higher standard and eventually become pure devotees of the Lord, unless they commit offenses against other devotees, in which case their advancement will be checked. Srila Madhvacharya states, Tad bhaktanam upekshaka kuryur vishnau apidvishe dvesham. Those who neglect or show indifference to the devotees of the Lord are to be considered offenders at the lotus feet of Vishnu. Similarly, those who disrespect the demigods will become bereft of devotional service and be forced to rotate again and again within samsara, the cycle of birth and death. Puja devas tatak sada. The demigods are always to be offered respect, since they are devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If someone is envious of the demigods, he is to be considered envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Similarly, one who offers sincere respect to the demigods is considered to be respecting the will of the Supreme Lord. A Vaishnava does not foolishly think that there are many gods. He knows that there is one Supreme Personality of Godhead. But as stated many times in Srimad-Bhagavatam, the Lord has a mission within this material world, which is to reform the conditioned living entities through the cruel laws of nature. In the Lord's mission within this world, the demigods are to be considered limbs of the Lord's body. It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita 7.20, Kamais, Taista, Ritigyana, Prapadyantenya Devataha, Tam Tam Niyamam Astaya, Prakritya Niyataksvaya. Those whose minds are distorted by material desires surrender unto demigods and follow the particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own natures. But there are many examples of devotees who worship the demigods to get benedictions for serving Lord Krishna. The gopis worshipped the demigods to achieve Krishna, and similarly, Rukmini Devi, on the day of her marriage, engaged in such demigod worship, her only goal being Krishna. Even today, the preachers of the Krishna consciousness movement cultivate important people with all kindness and diplomacy, so that the wealthy or influential people will engage their resources in the devotional service of Krishna, or glorify Krishna all over the world. Similarly, offering all respects to the demigods so that they will give facility for the devotional service of the Lord is not against the Bhakti Marg, although nowadays such demigod worship has also deteriorated. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has recommended Harinama Sankirtan, chanting the holy names of Krishna, as the only realistic process for this age. Nonetheless, a devotee of the Lord should not misinterpret Bhagavad Gita's injunctions against deity worship as a license to offend the demigods, who are bona fide Vaishnavas. Srila Madhvacharya notes, Vishnur upekshakam sarve bidbashantyadikam surdaha patat yavasham tamasi harina taish japatitaha. All the demigods are extremely inimical to one who does not respect Lord Vishnu. Such a person is pushed into the darkest regions by the Lord as well as by the demigods. From this statement by Srila Madhvacharya, the devotional sentiments of the demigods can be understood. It is stated that in the supreme liberation achieved by an Uttama Adhikari, the most exalted devotee of the Lord, the devotee enjoys transcendental bliss in the direct association of the Supreme Lord and the demigods. According to Jiva Goswami, since a Kanishta Adhikari, who cannot properly respect other devotees, will certainly fail to offer respect to ordinary living entities who are not even devotees, a Kanishta Adhikari is useless for practical preaching work unless he comes to a higher platform of understanding. Srila Jiva Goswami says, Iyam chashata na shastrartha badaram jata. Because the Kanishta Adhikari's faith is not actually based on the statements of Vedic literature, he cannot understand the exalted position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead within everyone's heart. Therefore, he cannot actually manifest love of Godhead, nor can he understand the exalted position of the devotees of the Lord. Krishna is so glorious that Krishna's intimate associates must also be glorious. But this is unknown to a Kanishta Adhikari. Similarly, the essential qualification of a Vaishnava, which is to offer all respect to others, amanina manadena kirtaniyak sirahari, is also conspicuous by its absence in a Kanishta Adhikari. If such a person, however, has faith in the Vedic literatures and tries to understand the statements of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad-Bhagavatam, he will gradually be elevated to the second and first class stages of devotional service. According to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, a Kanishta Adhikari should very seriously engage in regulated worship of the deity. The deity is a particular incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Krishna can present himself before the worshipper in 5 different manifestations, namely his original form as Krishna, Para, his quadruple expansions, Vyuha, his pastime incarnations, Vaibhava, the Supersoul, Antaryami, and the deity, Archa. Within the deity form, Archa, is the Supersoul, who in turn is included within the Lord's pastime forms, Vaibhava. The Supreme Lord's Vaibhava Prakash is an emanation from the Chaturvyuha. This quadruple expansion of the Lord is situated within the Supreme Truth, Vasudeva, who himself is situated within the Swayam Prakash Tattva. This Swayam Prakash consists of expansions of the ultimate Swayam Rupa Tattva, the original form of Krishna within Goloka Vrindavan in the spiritual sky. This hierarchy of the expansions of the Supreme Lord in the spiritual world is realized even within the material world in terms of one's eagerness to render service to the Lord. A beginner in the lowest stage of devotional service should try to dedicate all his activities to the satisfaction of the Lord and cultivate the worship of Krishna in the temple. According to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, all the plenary expansions of the Supreme Lord mentioned above descend into this world and enter within the deity, who exhibits the function of the Supersoul by accompanying the daily life of the Vaishnava. Although the Vaibhava, or pastime expansions of the Lord, incarnate at specific times, Ramani Murtishu Kala Niyamena Tishtan, the Supersoul and deity forms are constantly available for the spiritual advancement of the devotees in this world. As one comes to the Madhyama Adhikari platform, one is able to understand the expansions of the Supreme Lord, whereas the Kanishta Adhikari's entire knowledge of the Lord is limited to the deity. Nonetheless, Krishna is so kind that to encourage even the lowest class of Vaishnavas, he condenses all of his various forms into the deity, so that by worshipping the deity, the Kanishta Adhikari devotee is worshipping all the forms of the Lord. As the devotee makes advancement, he can understand these forms as they appear in their own way, both within this world and in the spiritual sky. As long as one remains on the third-class platform, one has no transcendental appreciation of the blissful reality of the Supreme Lord's paraphernalia and entourage. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very pleased with King Prataparudra when the king, upon receiving an outer cloth from the Lord, immediately installed it as a deity and began to worship it as being as good as the Lord himself. Lord Shiva himself is stated, Tasmat Paratanam Devi Tadiyanam Samacharam. Worship of the paraphernalia, entourage, or devotees of the Lord is even better than worship of the Lord, because the Lord is more pleased by worship of his devotees and entourage than the worship of himself personally. According to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the inability of the Kanishta Adhikari to appreciate the Lord's devotees, entourage, and paraphernalia indicates that such a materialistic Vaishnava is still affected by the speculative understanding of the Karmavadis and Mayavadis, those who are dedicated to sense gratification and impersonal speculation about the Absolute. Srila Prabhupada often said that only the impersonalist desires to see Krishna alone. We desire to see Krishna with his cows, his friends, his parents, his gopis, his flute, jewelry, forest scenery, and so on. Krishna is gorgeous in the setting of Vrindavan. It is in the land of Vrindavan that Lord Krishna, surrounded by so many beautiful associates, manifests his exalted, indescribable beauty. Similarly, the unique mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is exhibited in the activities of his pure devotees, who selflessly travel around the universe, distributing the dust particles from Krishna's lotus feet on the heads of the conditioned souls. One who is uninterested in the Lord's paraphernalia, entourage, and devotees has a stunted conception of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This must be due to contamination from the impersonal and sensuous understandings of life. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur states that after hundreds of lifetimes of faithfully worshipping the deity of Lord Vasudeva, with external paraphernalia, one realizes the true nature of his transcendental name and mantras, and the bondage of one's materialistic mentality slackens. In this way, as a Kanishta Adhikari gradually comes to perceive the mental activities of a devotee and tries seriously to advance to a higher stage, his materialistic conceptions will go away of their own accord. He then exhibits loving service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and makes friendship with the devotees who are the dearmost sons of the Lord. And by appreciating the universal quality of devotional service to Krishna, he becomes very much eager to engage such other innocent people in the service of the Lord. Further, as he begins to make significant advancement, he becomes inimical to anything or anyone that hinders the progress of his devotional life, and thus he avoids atheistic people who cannot benefit by good instruction. The International Society for Krishna Consciousness, founded by His Divine Grace, Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paribrajacharya 108 Sri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, is so nice that anyone who helps this society immediately engages in preaching work for the Lord. Thus, there is great facility for the members of this society to come quickly to the second-class stage of devotional service. If, in the name of Krishna consciousness, one gives up preaching and instead becomes interested simply in collecting funds for maintenance, he is showing a type of envy of other living entities. This is a symptom of the third-class platform. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, verses 45 through 47 constitute the answer to King Nimi's two questions. What is the nature of devotional service to the Lord? And what are the specific duties of the Vaishnavas? Hare Krishna. So we'll stop our reading here. See, one comment I'd like to make to you, because you're just coming into this and you're hearing all these things, and my God, it must be, I can't imagine how overwhelming. It's overwhelming to us, what to speak of to you. It's a deep science. It's a spiritual science, not like materialistic science, not mechanistic science or reductionist science. It's a spiritual science. But there's a process and levels of attainment, and they can be recognized by persons who are well-versed and have applied the instructions into their own character, and therefore there's tangible, specific, more concise and clear understanding as one proceeds, as one advances. So it's not just sentiment. In most of the churches and places you go, there's not this level of spiritual discussion. It's mainly political or sentimental or emotional, whatever. So, not that we don't want to have the emotion, we do, but it's required that the proper understanding go along with the emotion. If it doesn't, then it becomes sentimental and eventually fanatic. And then people will do anything. They go out and commit violence in the name of their so-called religion and so on and so forth. But if one is actually advancing in spiritual life, in religious life, then his vision becomes gradually open, and he sees Krishna, God, in everything, and therefore he sees everything as belonging to God. Nothing belongs to us. Everything that comes to us has to go. It doesn't belong to us. We're using it, but it actually belongs to God. So it's our hope that we can advance and also teach others how to advance in devotional life, so they will have a solid platform from which they can be balanced and deepen their understanding, deepen their love for God. Because ultimately that's the goal. It's the goal in every religious scripture. You know, Jesus said, love the Lord thy God with all thy strength, all thy soul, and all thy mind. This is what it means. He said, you know, to his disciples, now go out and walk around and deliver the people by the dust of the lotus feet. That's exactly what's being said here. So there's similarities in all the scriptures of the world, but because of this analysis that we've just heard, there's also a hierarchy of advancement in devotional life. And the Krishna consciousness movement is teaching and following the elevated devotional life that can take us off the sentimental religious platform and onto the spiritual platform, where we can see for ourselves, not just you read it out of a book. If you apply these principles and advance yourself, then you can actually come to the point of seeing yourself and the world around you properly. And then we become happy, because that's who we are. We're not animals. We're human beings. And we're meant to think like human beings, and treat others like human beings, not as some, you know, antagonist or protagonist or friend and enemy and all those things. Good and bad, it's all mental concoction. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Okay, so now we have a section called, well, it's already 7:30, called our open mic session. So we went a little long. That was a very long purport that lasted. I kept thinking it was going to end, but it's kept going on and on. I was going to stop, but I couldn't because it was so good. Okay, it's up to you now, all of you. Questions, reflections, discussions? Yes, Prana, I was hoping that you'd get us started.
I thought that was pretty far out. Srila Bhakti said expansions of Krishna up to Krishna himself in Goloka incarnate into the deity form.
Yes.
And kind of far out.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the neophyte doesn't understand that. He just sees the deity. But the higher grade devotees are thinking of Krishna in his other aspects.
I mentioned that yesterday, didn't I? That it's not that the deity worship is just for neophytes. The deity worship is for everyone. But it's the consciousness that the advanced devotee has when worshiping the deity. And the Bhagavatam, because, you know, if a Kanishtadikari can't be attracted in Bhagavatam, not really, maybe in a ritual way, but, you know, the Bhagavatam and the holy name and the preaching and all these activities that are, they will give one, you know, they open up the heart to be able to see the deity in the heart of the living being, the super soul. And that was another important part of that, because it related as the super soul coming into the deity. The super soul is also in the heart of the living being. So if the person worships a deity but does not see the deity in the heart of the other living beings, then they're restricted to just the ritual. And they can't see, and that's good. Therefore Krishna says, Udaraksava evaite jnana tvat maivamematam astita sahiyuktatma mameva nutamam gatim. These are all magnanimous souls. Even the souls who are just coming to Krishna because they're distressed or they're inquisitive or they're in need of money or whatever. Anybody who approaches Krishna is actually a magnanimous soul and should be seen like that. But to be able to see the super soul in the hearts of others, that's another level of devotional service. Something? Oh, I thought you were going to say something. Questions? Comments? Just hearing, just hearing.
Yes.
Has there been anyone or
Yes, please. Dustin.
have you met anyone who's read all these books? Or I mean, is it possible for someone to read all these books and still not believe? You know, and still be an atheist?
I haven't read anybody who's read all these books and still stay an atheist. I've read all these books.
Is there like
many times?
Like stories of that, or?
Yes. If in the scriptures that we read, there's many stories of people who read and they hear, but they hold material concept because they're proud. They don't want to hear. Think that advancement means that they become the authority, and they don't become humble, because one of the symptoms of an advanced devotee is that they become humble and they see themselves in relationship to God as being very tiny, and therefore they approach the scriptures with the right attitude, and therefore by hearing it, it elevates the consciousness, and then you become free from that envy, and their love for God comes out. Because the love for God is there in the heart of everyone. Love for God is in the heart of everyone. Nitya Sitya Krita Prema Sabakabunoi. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sabakabunoi. In every single heart is love of God, dormant. It's not manifested, but it's dormant. And when we're in the material world, that love, material energy, and then it becomes, love for this or that, or this person or that person, The love is there, it's there, everyone's looking for it. But that's what the love actually is in its ultimate state, ultimate form, is love for God. It's like you're watering a root of the tree rather than trying to water the leaves and the flowers and the fruits and the favorite parts. If you don't water the root, then eventually the tree will die. So once we understand that we're a part of God, that we're not material, that we're spiritual, and that Krishna is the supreme spirit, or the root of everything, then we put the water there, and then we become nourished, and the overflow from that nourishes others. And in that way it spreads. But the material energy is very strong, and it has a purpose. The material energy is here in order to give those of us who have decided that we want to live separately from God, that we want to be independent, that we want to own, and that we want to control, or think that we can own and control and enjoy the material energy, which really doesn't belong to us. It's like going into the Bank of America and renouncing the bank. I renounce this money. It's like you'd have to be a madman, because none of that money belonged to you. So there are stories in the scriptures about people who study devotional scriptures, but are so attached to being themselves God, or becoming God, and that's the concept that's being discussed in these purports that we just read. When they're in that consciousness, they need to be avoided, because they will contaminate the whole atmosphere. And that's what's happening to the world right now. In the name of spirituality, or in the name of whatever, religiosity, or now they have so many isms, so many philosophies, so many isms. Neo this and neo that, this ism and that ism, but they can't actually care for one another spiritually. But that faith that's there, but may be immature, it's like a fruit. You leave the fruit on the tree, and eventually the truth becomes ripe, the fruit becomes ripe. But if you take it off the tree before it's ripe, it stays bitter, It doesn't become sweet. So persons who stop hearing, stop trying to understand, stop the process of advancement, they will be spoiled just like a fruit. You take off the tree and it doesn't ripen. It's the same fruit, but it's not mature, it's not ripe. When we keep ourselves connected with Krishna, with God, through the sincere service of, chanting, associating with Him through His names and the descriptions of His glories and His activities, especially in the spiritual world and here in the material world when He comes to deliver us, then we become awakened. We wake up like an alarm, like a spiritual alarm clock, Ring, ding, 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 ding. What's that? Oh, and then we hear the kirtan, and then gradually we get a taste. Then you take the prasadam on your tongue, and whoa, this is something different. And then you hear this science, and then whoa, this is, as our honest John sometimes says, there's a person who comes, he's an electrician, and he started coming, and he's just an honest person. He's like salt of the earth person. And after he came for about 3 or 4 times, he's been looking and looking and reading, and he said, wow, this is the real deal. That's the way he put it. And he started to hear, and now every time he opens his mouth, we all listen carefully because his realizations are very deep and practical. And
Thank you.
thank you. Like father, like son. This is a really unusual situation. All of us have come to this movement, and it's very rare to find a father and son that are both sitting there together hearing about Krishna. Very rare. You're very lucky.
I am, thank you.
Very lucky. Fortunate. Mahabhagya, that's the term in Sanskrit language. Mahabhagya, very fortunate. We hope, with all the sincerity we have in our hearts, that this experience of just hearing and being with the devotees and going to the temple and chanting and joining a community, family, that has Krishna actually in the center, rather than being some political kind of force that's trying to take over something or this or that. I hope you take advantage of that, and you're so welcome. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, we'll stop here for our readings. What?
We've got 2 online.
2 online. Okay, this is being broadcast. That's what this is all about. So,
Rasika first.
Rasa Rasika, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Please accept my obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Today we heard, quote, although a Vaishnava sees every living entity as part and parcel of Krishna, he must discriminate in his external behavior so as not to interfere with the original purpose of the Lord's creation, which is to reform the living entities so that they can gradually come back home, back to Godhead. End quote. In what way should a Vaishnava discriminate in his external behavior to avoid interfering with the original purpose of the Lord's creation?
Well, we heard about that. He worships God. He becomes friends with the devotees. He's compassionate towards innocent people who don't yet have knowledge about God. And he avoids the atheistic persons who are hell-bent on going to hell in a handbasket. That's how the person acts in order not to interfere with the purpose. Well, there's, the purpose of the Lord, the purpose of the creation is twofold. It's not just one fold. the purpose of the creation is to give a place for the conditioned souls to live so that they can imagine that they can enjoy, and at the same time to give them a place to reclaim, to be reclaimed. So the two purposes, not just one purpose. So but the ultimate purpose is to reclaim the conditioned souls. That's why Krishna comes periodically. He sends his son, or an incarnation, or he comes personally, or a prophet, or a great soul, great devotee. That's the reflection of the ultimate purpose, which is to teach and cultivate and reclaim, the souls back to the spiritual world. So a devotee tries his best not to say or do anything that's going to inhibit someone from taking that path back to Godhead. The details, that's a big subject. I don't have time to discuss all the details, but that's the principle. The principle is that a devotee doesn't act in such a way as to cause another person to go away from God. He acts in such a way as to bring them closer to God from wherever they are.
Okay. Rati Manjari.
Hey, Rati.
Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Tonight, we heard that the Madhyam devotee should avoid the envious. I have a related question about that. Actually, it's another ism. Nowadays, in the world, there is a lot of talk about narcissism. This seems to be a widespread phenomena, with many persons feeling abused by narcissists and having to learn...
Especially when he's the President of the United States.
and having to learn how to deal with such persons who might be in your family. Could you please explain how a devotee views narcissistic
This is a loaded
behavior?
question. Rati, you're asking me a loaded question. If you're the mother of somebody who was a narcissist, then you have to tolerate. But you don't, you become affected by the holy name of the Lord and all the things that you do. And I know she does this.
Should I continue?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right, so having to learn how to deal with such persons who might be in your family, could you please explain how a devotee views narcissistic behavior? Are these people a type of demon? And do you have any specific tips on how to deal with narcissistic people, especially when they are close to us like a spouse or a parent?
I mean, it's a loaded question. You can't answer it. Each person is different. I'm going to act like this with everybody. I'm going to act like to narcissists like this for but it's not like that. Each person is a tendency to be narcissistic just by being in the material world. When you think that you're your body, you're a narcissist. But then there's an extreme version of it when a narcissist is just so self-absorbed that they have no room for anybody else, and it's all about them, and there's no way to, therefore you ignore them. And if they become enough of a disturbance to you, then you have to leave them. There's a very nice description in one of the purports where Srila Prabhupada said that family life is not in itself negative. If you have, look, right now we've got a father and a son sitting here on the floor right in front of me, and it's like so wonderful, But if a family member is so inimical that there are, when Prabhupada first started this movement, then it started to grow, and certain people started to understand just how deep this movement is. Some parents started paying others to deprogram their children so they wouldn't become influenced. They thought they were being brainwashed or something like that, So, there's a level of that inimical nature or narcissistic nature that one does not want to be with at all. But if we are strong enough, then we may not want to break it, the relationship, if it's a family relationship, you know, and then we have to do the best we can within that situation. 'Cause otherwise we'll look at people, you know, mechanically and not be open and not be able to associate with them as persons, as souls. So we have to see them as souls, and we have to try our best to give them Krishna consciousness. And if they are so narcissistic that they can't take it, then we have to be, you know, give respect inside, but not get close, not associate with them. If you're strong enough, if you're an Uttamadhikari, you can be close to that person and you can deliver them anyway. Mahaprabhu, when he was here, he delivered, you know, Prakashananda Saraswati and the Mayavadis who were so inimical to God that they didn't believe he was a person and thought that all Vaishnavas were just sentimentalists. So it depends on who we are, it depends on who they are, it depends on the relationship, it depends on our spiritual strength. It's not that there's some mechanical formula. That won't work. That won't work. Anyway, that's as far as I can take it, at least for tonight. If we had more time, we could get more deeper into it. But now I got to go because I have to get up early in the morning and do the recording for the audiobooks. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Please come back again and see us. Thank you. Hare Krishna. We have some fruit for you before you go.
Okay.
We're going to stop now, but they're going to serve some fruit. So please stay for the fruit.
We'll see.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. Thank you very much, everybody. Same time, same station. We do this 7 days a week. Not just 1 day a week. 7 days a week. See you tomorrow. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Hari Bol.